Hi, everybody. I'm Mark David Smith, and you're watching Superheroes for the Messianic Lifestyle. And for this session, I have Rabbis Aviyah and Rabbi James Byers from the Melo HaGoyim Learning Center. And they are in North Carolina, and we love having them on the Lamb Network. As a matter of fact, they have been a part of Lamb Radio for several years. You guys remember when it was exactly that you started?
I don't remember.
It's been about 3 or 4 years now, I think, something like that.
I think it has been about 4 years.
Okay, yeah, quite a while. So, you guys have been in that area for quite a while. Let's get an idea. Let me talk to you individually to kind of get started. And Aviyah, where are you from originally? Have you always been in the North Carolina background?
No, actually, I was born in New Jersey, Rahway, New Jersey. So I'm a Jersey girl. And my father was a pastor. He was pastor my whole life. He was my only pastor until I was an adult and got married and, moved away from home. So I was a PK, and we moved to North Carolina when I was, I think, in the 6th or 7th grade. I think the 7th grade. And that's where, I grew up and met my husband, and we moved to the New York area.
Very interesting. So that's also where you're from, Rabbi James.
Well, actually, I'm kind of opposite. I'm born in North Carolina and grew up in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was living in New York and came to North Carolina visiting, I met my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And as we met, I had moved back to North Carolina, late 70s. And from that point, we married and then moved back to New York area for a few years, then down to DC area. And from DC, we moved back to North Carolina, full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And you're growing up in what religious belief system?
Mine, we were both actually in the same religious system.
Right, belong to the same
church. Basic Christianity, but
apostolic background.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
very much.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, as adults, growing adults, we found a time and a need that we needed more than what we had. We thought we were where we were supposed to be, but then the questions become apparent where they're just knocking on your door, and it's like, okay, I got to answer.
Right. Yeah.
So you would you say it's more like a full gospel type background?
Absolutely.
Yes.
The whole 9 yards.
Yes.
Speaking in tongues, rolling on the floor, giving and vent to the Holy Spirit, and the whole 9 yards. It was closer apostolic. It was closer to like holiness and Pentecostal kind of mixed together.
Right.
You don't see that a lot in the Messianic lifestyle these days, or it's not prevalent or publicized, within the community. Do you guys still adhere to those principles within the congregation?
Not at all.
No.
We've made a total change, transformation actually, from what we were to what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And but although we can look back and see traces of what we were, such as the holy days. In the church that we grew up, we were used to doing first day Sunday actually. But once a year, we did what was called convocations or holy convocations.
Mm-hmm.
So we grew up during holy convocations. So that once coming into this walk, now realizing that it's not holy convocations, but it is gatherings, the holy days of Yahweh, Leviticus 23, of which we've never looked at it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But now looking back,
right,
we had a touch of it.
Right. But
So
there was
like that.
There was a lot. It was a lot of very emotional, spiritual kind of reality there in our upbringing. And once we started coming into really the deep study of the Torah and the relating, the life of Mashiach to, the Torah lifestyle, there were a lot of things. I mean, we spent a lot of time, throwing this out. Yeah, we don't need that. And we'll keep this, or we'll throw that out, or, so it was a lot of re-educating and looking at our life across the board, because we were both heavily into praise and worship. We were both praise and worship leaders. My husband was a musician, play all these instruments. My family, being pastors' kids, we sang. And most of the time we were the whole choir, because my mom and dad had 10 kids. So we were the whole church sometimes, we were in charge of everything. So we were used to being part of the praise and worship, and also in the processing of the word within the church. Because in my father's house, you had to know the Bible. You had to know from Genesis to Revelation. There was no excuse. So that was really a good thing.
And now on my side, it was similar, but my father was not one of the ministers, but one of the musicians. And then it was my mother's side who were the musicians and ministers. And so I looked at them and, emulated what they were doing. So I grew up as a minister very early. Actually, I was ordained in that ministry at the age of 15, of which I started pursuing it since the age of 9. So I was raised up for ministry. And so by the time the wife and myself came together, her being a PK and myself already into ministry and music, it was just a very comfortable fit for us, because we knew each other without knowing each other.
Right. It was a match made in the heavens.
So what you're actually saying is that when you're talking about you were throwing this out and this out, you were looking for a balance between the two lifestyles, and you were learning about Torah and learning how things balanced out between the two, is what I'm hearing.
That's correct. Let's for example, let's look at salvation. In the church or traditional teaching, salvation is very much about outward appearances, which are supposed to be inward.
Right.
But you must how we grew up, you must show sign of your salvation.
Right.
And so in the showing of the signs, in the and I'll use the word flavor, in the flavor of our outward appearance, this was with the emotionalism, speaking in tongues, shouting, the music, holiness. And I'm sure everybody, you got Azusa Street and all of that. So let's just transfer that into this generation.
Right.
We didn't go to Azusa Street. Azusa Street came to us.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very well put. I like it.
We very much showed evidence because this is what we were taught.
Right.
But now what I understand is that the day of Pentecost is not what we thought. Because what we thought with the speaking of tongues, it was unknown tongues. But very much scripturally, these were tongues that were of the other people
Languages.
who came to
Absolutely.
Jerusalem for the feast. And 3 times a year, learning, they're coming together. And during this time, the Holy Spirit was given, and they spoke with languages that was understood by the other people who had came. And so they understood the languages that they were speaking. But the mystery was, how is it that they're all Galileans or live in this region, but speak the language from the region of which we come?
Right. So we basically, in a nutshell, we believe they were languages. They weren't this googly got bubba bubba bubba. And I don't want to laugh at or make jest or fun of people, because we have a lot of our brethren in the Hebrew believe in there being a spiritual or their heavenly tongue. And I really don't have anything to say about that. But historically, we could see where that came from. And if that's what they were talking about during that time, nothing in scripture says that. It says they were actual languages. So we had to come to that conclusion. So that's one of those things where you said, well, that's what we were raised in. Was it truth? Truth or false?
Well, and actually, that's even just a fraction of all the things that we were taught before, that you hold on to the baseline of that, but a lot of those details that we went off into different directions, we found a balance when we came into the Torah understanding. And absolutely. I mean, we all did. It's absolutely. Very true.
Absolutely.
Yep. So in the transition, were there people or a person that brought this to you, or somewhere where you went that sparked a question here and there? Like with me, I had read question marks, through most of my Christian walk. And then when it was brought to me by one person, it all just opened up. So how did it come about for you?
Well, for us, the very beginning is when we went to our very first Messianic meet.
But it was before that with Marie.
Right. That's what I'm saying. When she invited us.
Right. But the reason she invited us was because we were, and it was interesting because we worked together for, I think, 2.5. Marie and I worked together for 2.5 years. And she was getting ready to leave the company and go to another job. And so my husband and I had been doing praise and worship workshops and seminars up and down the East Coast in different churches that was calling us in, and we would do teachings on on praise and worship. And I remember telling her, look, we're doing these teachings on praise and worship, but we need I think we just kind of hit a brick wall. We need a rabbi to talk to. And I remember saying that to her, and she said, a rabbi? I said, yeah, I don't need for him to believe in Jesus, because nobody can take that belief from me. I said, we need some depth into what we are doing and what we're studying. And that's how she said, oh, well, every Friday night we go to Moxville and we sit down and have a teaching with a Messianic rabbi. And I'm just sitting there blown away. This was her last day of work there. And we get into this conversation, and she says she has been for a few weeks going to this place. Come. And I told her we were getting ready to go do a praise and worship session, I think in Atlanta, Georgia. And I said, we can't come this weekend, but we'll be there next weekend, and take it from there.
So we went. And that night, we just cried all the way home.
And all night long.
Because we knew hearing for the first time, it's like, it was like going before Niagara Falls and trying to catch all the water in a small cup.
In a tin camping cup.
We knew we were home.
Yep, we were. And the Rabbi David Levy, he was the one that we came in under. And
I know David, he's a great guy.
Oh my goodness.
For
and
a long time.
he looked at us and he said, "You don't know who you are, but I know who you are." And I just remember crying and just putting on, I had bought this CD called Jerusalem, and it was all these different Messianic singers and singing all this music from the Holy Land, because I was having surgery and I wanted them to play this CD while I was having surgery. Now, my son and my daughter was like, "Mom, do you need some new music to listen to? What in the world is that?" And I said, "No, leave my music alone. This is what I want the doctors to play while I'm having the surgery." And one of the songs on there was the Shema. And I remember putting it on repeat. And we went to bed. And I remember, both of us just wept all night, just wept. And we felt like, you know what? This is it. This is what we've been missing. Because truly, if we say that we are of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then we're missing a whole big piece of the puzzle that makes us who we say that we are. And so it was, from that point, that was it. Every Friday night we were in Moxville and it just transformed our entire life. We were scared as heck to talk to anybody else about it, because we didn't know what we were really doing ourselves. We were just like,
right.
What are people gonna say? And they said exactly what we thought.
And we had a television ministry that we were doing.
Yes.
And
on a cable access.
What are we going to do with this? We can't tell nobody about this. We can't. They will think we are crazy. And so, and the name of our show was Matters of the Heart. So we did a lot of things dealing with, morals and salvation and family. So it was centered around family. Mm-hmm. And here's a coincidence that I don't think was a coincidence. I had a book that I had been reading called The Tabernacle.
Yes.
And the author of that book was it David Levy?
It was David Levy. It wasn't our David Levy, but it was a David Levy.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking at the book and I'm looking at him. I'm looking at the book. I'm looking at him. And I've been reading and I have been stuck in this book, talking all about the symbolics of the colors and all of the stakes and everything that went into making the tabernacle. Yeah. I'm like, is this guy the same insight? And so I asked him. He said, "No, that's not me.
That's not me."
And so, but listening to him, I knew that we have to be in the right place, because from what I've been reading about the tabernacle itself, that took me into such depth. And now I have someone live going into depth of the Torah, teaching us things of the Torah. And I'm like, okay, this is where we're supposed to be. So that was our beginning.
And, you were, Aviyah, you were saying how you had asked the lady about talking to a rabbi, and the Lord gave you the best of both worlds, not only a rabbi, but one that knows the Messiah. And it's interesting how the Lord, just in his own timing and his own path, when we try to make that path work, it doesn't go. But if we'll stand back and step on the path that the Lord lays out in front of us, it's a whole different understanding that allows us to take that step by step and put that balance together. It really is. It's all about the balance of the two. And it's amazing what you guys have gone through and what you're still going through. So then you already had the ministry. How long did it take you to acclimate and bring others with you, or did they just reject it all together and not follow you, and you had to restart? What was the transition there?
Well, with that, let me kind of open up this part of it, which is living in Washington, D.C. Our firstborn was graduating high school. And we had agreed, and I promised, wherever he goes to school, we're going to keep the family together. We'll move the whole family. And so he got into North Carolina school here in North Carolina. And so that opened the door for us. And so my father-in-law, I had promised that, I would come and we would come and do music ministry, because he was, had been talking to me on the phone about, moving back to North Carolina and helping with ministry. And so I finally called him and said that we would come and we would build the music ministry. And so now we're into the traditional walk of it. And my mother-in-law went out to
Oregon.
They were invited to a place. Can't think of the ministry. I can't
remember his name, but it's very.
They were opened up to the Hebrew holy days and the Sabbath and the lifestyle. And so when they came back, they were, saying shalom to everyone.
Shabbat shalom. Yeah.
Now, mind you, this was on the first day of the week, Sunday. And so as they began to say these things and open up some things that they had went away and learned and began to bring it back, it was like, okay, the hunger was put there. And as we now begin to go out and study with this rabbi and their ministry, they opened up and said, why don't y'all share some things with us? And so we had not even yet begun to share on our television ministry, but they said, you're going and learning all of these wonderful things. When are you going to share them with us? Go ahead.
And that didn't go over so well. People always want to know, and they really don't want to know. And then when they know, they're like, why did I even ask that question? Stop. So that's how it was. It was because we were both associate ministers by that time. So both of us had times where we were ministering one Sunday within the month to the congregation. And just so happens, we are now in the thick of it. We're maybe about a year and a half or so really into the teaching. So we're really studying. And we went out. We already had, that's where we met you guys, out in Oklahoma at Tabernacles. So we had already done our first Tabernacles.
2001.
We had already sat down, talked to Rabbi Monty and Rabbi Ralph, and Reggie White was big in helping us, to come in to and get understanding, and it was just amazing. Eddie Chumney sitting down and just discussing and talking over
Reggie White
Torah.
Introduced us to Eddie Chumney and his books, and was like grabbing up the books and reading.
We were just going wild. Then I lost my job for like a year and a half. He wasn't working. He was transitioning from private school to public school. So he was home like 6 months. We're both there, and Father Yahweh is clearing the path of our time, and he is sending money. I mean, we were getting funding in from places that we didn't even realize people even knew us. Some people would just send us checks and say, hey, the Lord put it on my heart to send you this. And I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And all the time we were studying. Rabbi Ralph Messer sent us a whole, Torah 101, Torah 102,
I need
103, 201. I mean, he was just sending us stuff.
Let me help you.
And we started kind of teaching and moving our audience on the television into the Torah. So we would start doing artifacts and talits and the menorah and teaching about what these things. So
now the television ministry is starting to merge.
And then once my father says, well, tell us, share with us. So that Sunday, I will never forget, it was the Sunday before December 25th. And I got up and I put my teaching together, and I got up there and I taught from Jeremiah 10 and everybody about the Christmas tree. And then everybody
silence in the house.
Silence. It was silence in the heavens for 30 minutes. And so my mother looks at me like, I do not believe you did that. I said, you told us to share with you what we are learning. And so we sat down and we had discussions, and it was just, it became a little kind of painful, but we continued on there with them and still going out to Rabbi Levy's in Moxville, and we were still learning. And my husband really, truly got a call from the Most High to start ministering and going into the keeping of the Sabbath. And people, we just started wanting to learn the Torah. And Rabbi Levy, he would teach more on, you could not beat him in the area of two house and understanding the breakup of the kingdom and what the house of Israel looked like then and what it looks like now, and people being sent the diaspora and everything. So we got heavily into studying the Torah. And it was amazing because when we started having Torah studies at our house, we were still going to the Sabbaths on Friday, but we would have a Torah study at our house, and people were just like, hey, where are you studying the Torah? And then people just started coming and filling up. But we bought 2 large 8-foot tables and chairs to put around them. And people just started coming and sitting, and we would just study the Torah for hours on Tuesday or Wednesday night. I mean, until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we would be sitting, and everybody had to go to work the next day. It was amazing. And we were so heavily into studying. It was just absolutely amazing. But it did not go over well with my family at all. They said, it just wasn't good.
But the signs were there. The signs began to break through even as we moved to North Carolina, because we were set to purchase a home in North Carolina.
Right.
And neither states that we were starting to look, like in New York, we were looking around and we didn't find anything we wanted. Washington, D.C., we didn't find anything. And so over the course of years, by this time, we're like, okay, it's time to buy a home. Our children are getting, a little older now. Our firstborn is ready for college. We got a place downstate. So, excuse me. So we came into a financial deal for North Carolina, and we came, and that one fell through. Okay, we'll try it again. And then that one fell through.
Well, actually, the financial institutions went bankrupt, 3 of them. And it was like, okay, Father, what's going on?
We knew something, something had to be working behind the scenes. But when we finally were able to secure a plot of land and a home, we asked the lady, so she, after we gave our earnest money and we were doing everything, and it looked like, okay, this financial institute is surviving, so it's going to happen. So what's the name of the street? So we were actually the first. They had dug up the streets and hadn't finished the streets yet, no houses, anything. And so, a few months went by and we said, okay, so what's the name of the street? She showed us, she says, you're going to be right here. And the development is called Canaan Land.
Canaan Place.
Canaan Place. We both looked at each other and we're like, okay. And then she said, but the name of the street is Promised Land.
Promised Land Court. But see, about 5 years before.
Are we surprised at all?
I mean, about 5 years before, Father said in prophecy at the church we were in, that this is going to be your land of milk and honey. This is going to be your Canaan land. And we were like, oh, wow. Now that this time we were still in the church. So I remember also him saying in prayer that it'll be a name that's familiar to you. And that'll let you know that this is where I'm telling you to put down stakes. And then we come 5 years later and she says, Canaan Land Court, Canaan Land is your housing development, and Promised Land Court is the street that you live on. And wow. It has been amazing, but the transition with the family trying to make that transition, it's still very, they just look at us, like, what are you doing?
Sure. I mean, it's truly amazing.
Yeah.
Sure. We will all stand before the Lord and give an account of what we believe and where we stood on it and all that.
Absolutely.
One of us. So that's fine. All right. Well, finishing up, you had mentioned two house. Is there any specific belief systems that you guys adhere to or teach along? That type of thing, other than others?
Well, although that was a start for us, once Yahweh revealed Torah to me, and that was through one of the calendars that Rabbi Messer sent me, reading that from cover to cover, I realized what Rabbi David Levy was mentioning. He would say Torah, but we never understood what Torah was. Coming from the church, okay, you don't question, you just listen. And so we kept listening. And so finally one day I asked him, I said, so Rabbi, what is Torah? And so he said, you're moving too fast. You slow down and just continue to learn. And so, that didn't pique my desire, but it's still built. But once I began to read this calendar, truly, this is exactly where it came from. I saw the words Torah, and then I began to see the schedule of the scriptures and everything. I'm like, I just went ballistics. I went crazy. I'm like, honey, this is what Torah is. This is the Torah. We can learn the Torah. So we began to really sink into the Torah, and truly, that's what our ministry. We are a Torah ministry.
Torah-based.
We understand two house. We understand the other, different
and we
things.
Still teach, and we still teach them according to the historical facts of the transitioning of the house of Israel. So, and that's one reason why we called the center a learning center.
Yes.
Because we want people, when they come in, we have people at the ministry. Our demographics is really interesting. We have some who were raised generations Catholic. We have holiness, Pentecostal, Apostolic, Baptist, some who were nothing. Their parents taught them nothing about the Bible, nothing whatsoever. So it was some who dibbled and dabbled in all kind of religions. We have those that have been in the walk for 15, 20 years, and others who have just come in, who are brand spanking new, been in 2 or 3 a month or two. So because of that, we're constantly evaluating, going back and bringing people up to speed and the understanding of the historical, how important the historical part of the Torah is to the spiritual and the application of the Torah. So we are really all of that all combined, because we will teach concerning two house, we teach concerning prophecy, we teach concerning the sacred name and the importance of understanding that there is a difference. We just kind of Father has allowed it to really melt down into a very
balanced. That's what I would say it too, is balance. Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Right. And sometimes that's a little hard to find these days. People want to get, people and ministries want to get off over into one area or another and lose that balance. And it's so refreshing to hear you talk about how you handle these things and how you handle people that come into your presence and all of that. So I thank you for your integrity within the ministry, and we appreciate that so much here at the Lamb Network. So I'm actually in hearing you had said that you had gone to the Sukkot celebration in 2001. I was there. I remember, and excuse me.
That's where we met.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't remember how long it was. So I'm kind of putting together that you guys have roughly been committed to this lifestyle for about 20 years now.
That is correct.
It's been close.
Yeah, very good.
It was 2001.
Yep. That's very established. Okay, well, let's end this off by letting us know how people can contact you. Are you on any kind of social media that people can go look for you? How can they know where you're at if they're in the area? Say they're passing through and they're looking for a congregation or contact information.
Well, they can. Our physical address is 229 West Acadia Avenue in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is the smack right in the middle of Piedmont Triad. Also, if they want to, they can see us on, we have a Facebook, which is Melo HaGoyim Learning Center. And then also we have a Twitter, where they can come in and they can see stuff on there also, which is also Melo HaGoyim Learning Center. And then our website is the same, Melo HaGoyim Learning Center, melohagoyim.org. And then we also have a YouTube channel, which is MHG Learning Center. And you can go out there. We have all of our teachings uploaded there. So you can go out and watch a teaching at any given time. They're all saved out there. We have 6 teachers that all have a very different style of teaching. Our son who is Rabbi 2 is one. There used to be just the 3 of us teaching. And now we have 3 ministers, our daughter-in-law, Shamika and Shamika Byers, and then Minister George Mickle, Minister Cecilia Carter. And then it's wonderful because they have all different types of different teaching styles, some really comedic and some, really serious and powerful, more the hellfire damnation. That's what I've been told mine is more like. But We have also.
That's why you and I have a kindred spirit there, Aviyah. That's all there is to it.
We do, but you can always reach out to us there. Our website is always out there. We have the Torah portions and teachings and things out there for people to be able to go out and to find out free of charge. And we did that, Mark, because when we came into this walk, we found so many ministries that you had to pay for stuff. And we wanted to,
I agree.
We don't own the Torah. So how dare we charge for Torah teachings? And I don't want to make it sound, anyone who is doing that and they make a living at it, whatever Father has placed on your heart as the vision. But what he has placed here is that we do it and we give it at no charge, because it's about the advancing of the kingdom of our Elohim, and that people should be able to click on a button and get a good Torah teaching. That if they're searching for the word, they should be able to go out there and not have to pay, because we were given without payment.
Amen. Amen. The Lamb Network has been going from our very first podcast, which will be 8 years, next month. 8 years that we have been in ministry. We have never charged for one thing. We have lived and continued in ministry 100% solely on donations. And we will continue to do it. I've been confronted by lots of different people in ministry saying, "Oh, you should do this. You should do this. You should do this." The Lord provides. Here we are 8 years later, and the Lord has provided.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's been the same way with MHG. We don't even pull. People come to the ministry and say, "How do we give?" Because our pushka box is over in the corner somewhere. And we'll tell them, "Oh, you can put something in there, whatever Father puts on your heart." We have never had a problem paying the rent at our place, paying the light bill, water bill. We've always had toilet paper, paper towels, and paper cups for being able to drink water out of.
Preach it, girl. Preach it.
It has been. He has truly provided, and we never had to beg. We've just said thank you for your donations, and people just give, because Father is faithful in saying, if we will give, I always tell people this. Father Yahweh told me a long time ago, if you take care of my business, I'll take care of yours.
Amen.
So that's what he's been doing.
Well, very good. And what time is your services on Sabbath?
Our services are 1:30 on Sabbath until. I'll say it like that.
We blow the shofar and it's just gone in for the day.
I like it. Very good. All right. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. It's always good to reminisce. It's always good to go back and look over where we've come from. That's what it's all about. And especially when the Lord is not only involved, but the one causing it to happen. Absolutely. And that's what our lives are all about. So, Rabbis Aviyah and Rabbi James Byers, I appreciate your time. You can see their broadcast on the Lamb Video Network YouTube channel every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. But if you'll check the website and look at the page that we have for their ministry, for their broadcast, you can see all the other time zones and exactly what time they're on. That's posted in several different places. And so I'm sure after hearing this, you're going to want to come and hear what they have to offer. One last question. How did you come up with Rabbi 2 for your son? I need to know Rabbi 2. That, that's not a regular name there.
Well, he is our firstborn, and he has my name.
And it's James Calvin Byers the second.
The second. And so therefore he thought about it, and he was like,
what should I call myself?
Rabbi? I'm Rabbi too.
I'm Rabbi
I'm
too.
a rabbi too. So, and it kind of stuck. And so here we are.
So everybody calls him Rabbi too. Sometimes they shorten it down to two.
I like it. I like it. So you can actually be Rabbi the number two, the word two. You could Roman symbols of two. You could be TOO. You know, it could be.
It was pretty funny when he did it that Sabbath, because he had just gotten ordained. He was 30 years old, just gotten ordained. And he said, man, what am I? So I'm Rabbi. Man, I'm Rabbi too. I'm a Rabbi too. So I'm Rabbi too.
I love it. I love it. All right. Hey, we love you guys, and we appreciate you so much. We always love hearing about ministries of integrity, and I thank you so much for being on the Lamb Video Network with all the rest of us and being a part of that network. And we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
We thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate what you do. You give without cost.
Absolutely.
And so you've given us an opportunity to be a part. You've invited us, and we've been with you ever since. And we just thank you for what you do.
Really appreciate
thank you
that.
for the ministry that is coming from the heart.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. God bless. Looking forward to more of your broadcasts.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Shalom, my brother.
Shalom, brother.